Hey there, I'm Melissa Batt, the host of Priorities on Purpose, a podcast for overwhelmed women who are tired of going through the motions. You know there has to be more to this life than the cycle of numbing out, scrolling social media, exhausting yourself with a never-ending to-do list, and still feeling like a failure at the end of the day. You have hope that tomorrow will be different, and I'm here to help you make sure that it actually is. I'm a Christian life coach, and on this podcast, we talk all about intentional living, mental health struggles, and tangible ways to be the best versions of ourselves with Jesus at the center. I promise to be your hype girl and biggest cheerleader as I share simple strategies to help you get out of your rut, eliminate distractions, and live the life you were created for. Are you ready to go beyond existing and learn how to truly live? Put your earbuds in and let's get to it, friend. Hey, friends. Welcome back to another episode of Priorities on Purpose. I'm your host, Melissa Batt. I'm a Christian life coach and a faith mentor. And today's episode is going to be a little bit different. And it's related to a topic that I don't think I've ever talked about this, but I saw a reel on Instagram last week or the week before, and I just keep thinking about it. And when that happens, I normally start thinking like, okay, this is something that God wants me to address one way or another. And so how can I address it? What can I do about it? And every Tuesday, I have a call with a really good friend of mine. We schedule it in. We don't make it every week, but we schedule it in and we prioritize it. And Tuesday, I brought this up to her because I'm like, I'm still thinking about this. And so we talked about it and she is like, okay, so what is it you can do about this thing that's really been bothering you? And I was like, well, I think I should record a podcast episode about it because it's the only thing, like, obviously I'm going to do better. And I know I'm being vague. You're like, well, what is the topic, Melissa? I'm getting there. But I wanted to do a podcast episode and challenge others. And then I'm also going to be really intentional in my own life to do better with this. Okay. So what was the reel that I saw? And why has it bothered me so much? I'm so glad you asked because I want to tell you all about it. So I saw this reel that was actually not necessarily related at all to why I'm so bothered about it. It was basically a reel talking about a generation of human beings who are called the silent generation, and they're becoming extinct. And the next generation after them will be the boomers. And it was basically like saying to do something like create some kind of business because there will not be enough jobs available to help those that are the baby boomers because there's so many of them and they're going to need help. So it's basically start a business to help baby boomers because they're getting older and they're going to need your help. And so that was the reel. But that is not what I got out of it. All I heard was this silent generation that's becoming extinct. A silent generation that's becoming extinct. And if you know anything about me, you know that for years now, God has been calling me to use my voice, but also help others use their voice. And I think that's why it's bothered me so much, because if there's a generation that's silent, I can almost guarantee you they have something to say and God wants them to say it. And so the question is, what can I do? What can you do to help the silent generation learn to use their voice before there's no longer an opportunity here? And so who is the silent generation? The silent generation is the oldest members of our world today. Those who are between the age of 78 and 96 years old. I would pretty much just say 78 and older, because if they're not technically considered the silent generation, my guess is they have become silent because of this generation, because of the world that we live in today. And so they're becoming extinct because, they're getting older. And as they get older, they're not going to be here forever. Right. And I know that that's hard to hear when we have family members that are in that age range. I know I do. And so this was a huge call out for me. Like, what can I do to help those that I interact with use their voice? And I think the simple thing is have conversations with them. I'm currently going through the book of Genesis with my kids, and this week we were reading about Isaac and Elizabeth. I don't know where we're at, like chapter 25 through 28 or something like that. And there was a part in our reading where Isaac did the exact same his father did. And it made me like, I remember in the reading, I was like, hold up. Do you remember Abraham did the same thing? And Abraham did it multiple times. So what did he do? Abraham, when he got scared, because he was in a country where he was afraid. And so he lied and said his wife was his sister so that he wouldn't be killed, because he thought that they would kill him because his wife was so beautiful. So he lied and said his wife was his sister so they could do whatever they wanted with her, which I'm like, okay, well, that's wrong, right? Well, Isaac did the exact same thing. And so I just saw this call out and I was like, okay, the questions that I have is, why did he do the same thing? And how could he have learned not to do the same thing? Remember that not everything written in the Bible, not everything that's recorded is God approved. That's something that I think a lot of times we're like, oh, so does that mean God allows us to lie like that? No, just because it's recorded in history in the Bible does not mean it was God approved. Just calling that out there. Anyway, so it reminded me of that. And I'm like, man, there are so many lessons that we can learn from those who are older than us if we will give them an opportunity. So what can we do to make sure these life lessons are learned so we don't repeat some of their mistakes? We could give them an opportunity to share their life lessons. I don't think it can be more basic than that. While this generation that we're speaking of, these older people, they're considered the silent generation, I feel like they have also become an invisible generation, because our world today is so digitally advanced. We're on social media, we're texting, we're doing all of these things. And for the record, some in this generation have adopted these things and they're on social media. They have learned like the rest of us. But I know just from my dad, and my dad isn't quite 78. He's in his 70s though. He's right kind of at that cusp. Just going to the doctor today, all of the records are online, and, they want him to go to his MyChart app to find things, and he doesn't know how to do all of that. And so he always needs someone to help him. Even he has a pacemaker. And so even with that, like, I think he sits his phone by something and it runs a test. He doesn't go into the office to have that done or anything. So like all of these things, man, it has to be a lot for a generation who did not grow up with computers like this. And so I do think it's very easy for them to be considered invisible because, they're still reading the old-fashioned newspaper. They are not scrolling social media like we are. And if they are, they're probably not posting. They're reading, which means they're not sharing their stories. And I think in a world where we are very much out in public on our phone, instead of having face-to-face conversations, that's where they have become invisible. And so I really just want to challenge you, as I'm challenging myself, to do better in this area. I did a quick Google search and found some questions that we can ask to get conversations going with those that are older. And I just want to say, can we do better in this? Because do you realize the amount of life lessons someone who is older than us, what they have gone through, the stories that they can tell? Because listen, when they are no longer here, their story is not going to be told. And every single person, there's history books that will tell you about a war. There are history books that will tell you about the Great Depression, but we have people living today who was here, and their individual stories, I guarantee you, will be a little bit different than that's in a textbook. And you have someone that you have access to, most likely. If not, I want to challenge you to, put your phone down next time you're sitting at the doctor's office and befriend someone and have a conversation. I'm an introvert, but I do love to talk about deep topics. So instead of talking about the weather, it excites me to be like, so tell me about your life story. I mean, that's very exciting for me. I'm not even going to lie. So here's some questions that you can ask. What were some of the fads that were a thing when you were growing up? Today we use the word like trends, like the pegged pants and biker shorts and MC Hammer pants, slap bracelets. That was some of my generation growing up in the 90s. But imagine the stories that they could tell you. Another question that I thought was really fun is what invention would you say that you're the most excited about that you have seen in your lifetime? Some of these people were around to witness the difference between having a good refrigerator and not a refrigerator or whatever, I think. And if I did the math correct, cell phones, computers, the world today is so different. We just kind of run at such a fast pace. I think there's so many differences. And so to ask them questions related to that, what are some of your most important life lessons that you would want to pass on to others? What are some of the compliments or achievements that you would say you're the most proud of? And it could be from, an award they won at work, or to a compliment someone gave them about their parenting. And there's some great questions there that will kind of spark a conversation. What's your happiest memory? What's your earliest memory? What do you think has stayed the same about you throughout your life? That was another question that I found. And what age in your life do you remember the most vividly? Man, there's so many good questions. So I just want to challenge you to put your phone down and not talk about the weather. And, I think, gosh, let's see if we can we pause Wheel of Fortune? That's something that the people that I know that are in this age bracket, Wheel of Fortune is very much a thing. And so maybe on the commercials of Wheel of Fortune, we can do this and just ask questions and listen, because these are stories that could impact our life if we will ask and listen. And I know for me, I always say that I don't want to have to go through something for it to only benefit me. If it can benefit others, I want it to benefit others. And I think most of us are like that, especially when we have to go through hard seasons, when we have to learn the lessons the hard way. it's so beneficial to be able to share that with someone else and know that someone else can benefit from that hard thing that we have gone through. So again, this is my challenge. I want you to remember this generation that they call the silent generation and help them feel seen, because I can't imagine how lonely it must be to feel invisible. And I really do believe this is a message that God wants me to share, to say, like, let's help them use their voice and be seen, because they are his children too. And it's necessary and really good work. I know that some people in this generation may not have done all of the healing work that you and I have done because they're older. And I think, I don't know, it's just different. And I know there's a lot of older people that have this passive aggressiveness type behavior. And I just want to call that out. I was going to end this episode, but I'm like, nope, I'm going to call this out, because sometimes we don't want to deal with the passive aggressiveness because it gets old really quick. But they went through life in a different time than we did. It doesn't give them an excuse, but I think that we can offer grace and still have boundaries and still help them feel seen. And maybe this is an opportunity for God to continue to heal them today, because, you know, I've said, if your heart's still beating, you have work to do and God will use you. And if you ain't dead, you got something to do, or I don't know, something like that. There's some really cute, clever quotes I've used in the past, or phrases that, like, man, I'm not feeling clever today, but I know that this work is really important, and we can offer grace and still have boundaries. And so if you're feeling cringy or very standoffish with this challenge, that to me tells me that there is work to do in your heart to forgive them. And maybe it's an opportunity to have a conversation that is way past due. I remember when my dad's mom was dying, she had cancer. God called me to go and talk to her and acknowledge all of the stuff that I honestly had no idea that she would even know. I had blamed her for a lot of stuff when it came to the relationship I had with my dad, and I blamed her for it. And I didn't even know that she knew this. And so when God called me out on this, was like, you need to go talk to her and apologize. Was like, are you kidding me? I'm not going to bring all this stuff up. The woman is dying. Let her rest in peace. Okay. And God just kept on me and on me and on me. And I finally went and had this conversation with her, and she knew. And it was a conversation that was much needed for her and me. And so I want to challenge you, like, that generation will be extinct soon. You know, like, they're dying. We can't put off these conversations any longer. Have the conversations. Acknowledge the elephant. Go there. If you're thinking about it, stop brushing it under the rug. Have the conversation, because it's necessary for both of you. This conversation is so important. And we dismiss it thinking, it doesn't matter. It matters. It matters, friends. And so, you know, if the idea of having a lighthearted conversation and learning someone's life lessons makes you uncomfortable, that to me tells me there is other conversations that are absolutely necessary, and you are running out of time, friend. You need to have those conversations now while you can. now while you can. Let me repeat that. You need to have those conversations now while you can. I've talked to you about when my grandma was dying, my other grandma, my mom's mom. When she was dying, I went and was able to stay with her for a little bit and help her. And I spoke at her funeral. And the one thing that I said about the beauty of someone being on hospice is that you know the end is coming. When it comes to this generation, whether they're on hospice or not, you know the end is coming. You don't have forever to have these conversations. Time is ticking and they won't always be here. So whether it's you need to ask for forgiveness or you just need to acknowledge something hard or you need to ask a question, ask the question, have the hard conversation, and surround yourself with people who will help you do that and do it well, because it's not something you should do alone. I have coached a lot of women who have had to have hard conversations, and I would be honored to help you do that. But if not, just talk to somebody. You need to have courage. You need to have God on your side, and you need to have someone that's going to help you navigate it, because it's not going to be easy, especially if there's trauma related to this. I think there's a lot of buried trauma when it comes to older generations. And we, as my generation, I think we're learning to talk about it and acknowledge it. And that is such important work. But man, to help someone else get free before they pass on and, have a conversation with them. Do they know Jesus? That was a conversation I had to have with my grandma when I went and stayed with her. Do you know Jesus? Do you know where you're going when you die? I had that conversation with her and I was terrified why we get so scared. I can have that conversation with thousands of people online and not a big deal at all. But having that conversation with my grandma was so hard, but it was necessary. And she said she didn't know. And so I was able to talk to her about Jesus and pray with her so that when she died, she knew where she was going. And what a beautiful gift, not only for her, but for me and our family as we celebrated her passing on from this world to being with Jesus. So cool and so amazing. And it took courage and it took using my voice and having these conversations. All right. So I have so much more I could say. I've already said way more than I even planned in this episode, but I want to challenge us to do better. Let's not let this generation that they coin as silent, those over the age of 78, let's not let them die invisible. Whether it's your neighbor or someone you go to church with or a family member, let's help them feel seen, known, loved, and help them share their story, because there are things in their story that can benefit you and others as well. All right. Bye, guys. Hey friend, that's it for this episode. If you found value, I would love it if you could take a couple of seconds and leave me a quick review. While it may seem super simple, it is so beneficial and gives me the opportunity to help more women. Also, take a screenshot and share it on social media with your biggest aha today. Don't forget to tag me at Melissa Batt Official so we can connect. Thank you so much for listening. And until next time, friend, keep walking it out one baby step at a time, because God's got you.